Hello students and welcome to another lesson in Social Studies with Mrs. A. Wilson. This is a self-paced lesson. Today we will be looking at labor and trade relations with a focus on the Burma Road Riot. Students, as you can see, there are two very important men featured on our slide. The first is the Clifford Darling, former Governor General of an independent Bahamas, and the second, Sir Randolph Fox, also known as the Father of Labor. These two men were very instrumental in labor and trade relations in the Bahamas. These are our objectives for this lesson. By the end of this lesson, we would like to recall the date of the Burma Road Riot. We will also like to explain key terms such as civil rights and riot. Then we would like to also look at explaining three causes and effects of the Burma Road Riot. Effects is just another word for results. What were the results of the Burma Road Riot? Let us take a look at key vocabulary words that we will meet in this lesson. What is a riot? A riot is a violent and uncontrolled public behavior by a group of people. Later on in this video, I will show you an example of a riot that took place right here on the island of New Providence. Civil rights refers to our rights given to us as citizens under the laws and Constitution of the Bahamas. These rights are protected by the government. Join me in watching a video, very short video, that shows an example of a riot that took place in the Bahamas on the island of New Providence. In this particular video, the government, which was the F&M government at this time, was about to sell BTC. They were in the House of Assembly, downtown Nassau, and they were about to seal the deal on the sale of BTC, our telephone company, to Cable and Wireless, which is a foreign company. In this video, you will see that there were many Bahamians who protested the sale of BTC. They were in disagreement. They took to the streets. They went out on Wednesday when the House of Assembly meets to show their solidarity and protest against this move. However, the government still sold BTC to Cable and Wireless. Take a look at this video.
A people united will never be defeated. 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 Do you be all day, brothers and sisters?
Okay, students, did you see the chaos? Did you see the disorder? Did you see the barricades go up into the air? My Lord, the police could not control this crowd. That is an example of a riot that took place in the Bahamas. I know some of you are saying, really? When? Where? I never saw and I did not know, but it took place on the island of Providence. This is a picture showing the actual protesters of a 1942 Burma Road Riot. So like our first objective said, you should be able to recall the date, the year of the Burma Road Riot, which was 1942. Students, let us take a look at the map of the Bahamas and ensure that we are able to identify the island on the map where the Burma Road Riot took place. This island is identified by the letter A, and it is Providence. Students, join me in taking a tour of the route. Students, as you can see on this map, it shows the route taken by rioters who participated in the Burma Road Riot. Now I'm going to use a pen in yellow to illustrate the route. As you can see, this road here is where it all began. That is Thompson Boulevard. Where exactly is that located? Do you know where the University of the Bahamas is in Oaksville? Well, they started off in that general area. That is where the Burma Road is located. Then you will see the protesters would have traveled north on Thompson Boulevard, and then they would have turned right and traveled east on Poinciana Drive, and then they would have turned left. Follow my yellow arrow. They would have turned left onto Bailu Road, which we call Blue Hill Road, and they would have traveled north, taking them to downtown Nassau. So let's go over the roads again. The first one would be Thompson Boulevard, and they traveled north. Then they would have taken a right turn onto Poinciana Drive and traveled east, and then they would have taken a left turn onto Bailu Road, which we call Blue Hill Road, and traveled north up to downtown Nassau, which is Bay Street. And that is the route that the rioters took who participated in the Burma Road Riot. What were some of the long-term causes of the riot? Things that existed prior to the riot but may have presented itself as a boost or an impetus to create this riot. Number one, as you can see featured on the screen, discrimination, racial tension, racial tensions between blacks and whites, discrimination of black behemoths. They were treated unfairly, they were treated unequally. Labor strife. Blacks, in particular, were under unfair labor practices in the Bahamas. They were paid less money for jobs that they were doing simply because they were black. Examples of racial tension and discrimination in the Bahamas include there was racial discrimination, which was common in the Bahamas between the 1940s and the 1960s. Very few black Bahamians had a high school education because at this time Queens College was not was the only school, and the only persons that could attend that school were white people. Blacks were not allowed to attend Queens College. There were some areas in the Bahamas where blacks were not allowed to go. There were some churches that did not allow blacks, some schools, as we said, the Queens College. There were also public places that openly displayed discrimination against blacks. Right here in the Bahamas, there was plural voting, which means that persons were allowed to vote more than once, and there was a property qualification for voting. You could not vote if you did not own property, and if you owned more than one property, you were allowed more than one vote. And remember, at this time, many black people could not vote. Women also did not have the right to vote. So all of this was happening prior to the Burma Road Riot, and it set the stage for this Burma Road Riot to take place. Causes of the Burma Road Riot. The main causes of this riot are related to the government hiring a company called the Pleasantville Construction Company. They were hired to build a new airport. The government advised them not to pay blacks and whites equal wages. Basically, they wanted whites to make more than blacks for the same jobs. Blacks were paid less for the same jobs as whites. All of this created tension, racial tension between blacks and whites in the Bahamas. Further causes of the riot continued. Wages. There were issues with wages or pay. Black Bahamian construction workers, as we said in our previous slide, was paid less than white workers to build a new airport at Windsor. Complaints made by the workers were not resolved. So workers became very agitated and very angry. As a result, since their complaints fell on deaf ears, it led to a riot. And as you can see in the picture featured, those are some of the persons back in 1942 that attended and took part in the Burma Road Riot. These are the events of the Burma Road Riot. 1. Blacks gathered in Over the Hill, which is today the Bain and Grantstown area. Rioters marched to Bay Street. When they got to Bay Street, they began to break windows. They began to loot, which means they began to steal items or things out of shops that were damaged, where windows were broken. Most of these businesses belong to whites because they own most, if not all, of the businesses on Bay Street. The Riot Act was read. The government had to do something quickly to get control of the country because we were getting to a point where we were getting out of control. The government also declared martial law, which means that the police was given extra powers to arrest persons who were not obeying the laws. Additionally, a curfew was established, similar to the curfew that we are under today, where persons have to be home by 7 o'clock, and I heard starting on Friday, the Prime Minister has extended it to 8 o'clock. So a curfew was started by the government. Martial law was declared, giving the police extra powers. The Riot Act was read, letting persons know that we are in a state of emergency and the country was shutting down, or the island of New Providence was shutting down so that we can get order. As a result of this riot, two persons lost their lives, so there were two deaths, and it was reported that 25 persons were injured. So as you can see, the riot took on a very violent nature. These are some of the results of the riot. Although the riot itself was not a good thing in that persons lost their lives and were injured, it did bring about some very good benefits and results, such as workers' pay was increased. It was raised by 1 shilling. 1 shilling is equivalent to 27-28 cents today. Shillings is a form of British money. Remember, we were still a British colony at this time, so we were using British money. It set the stage for the development of political parties, and as you would see later on, blacks took a stand, formed a political party to see if they can get control of the government from the white minority. There was also a Unions and Workmen's Compensation Act or law that was passed in the House of Assembly in 1943. In this act, it made provisions for trade unions. What is a trade union? An organization of workers who have come together to achieve a common goal. Basically, they try to improve the working conditions of workers or laborers in the Bahamas. They worked at attaining better wages, and they did. They also got more benefits for workers, such as health care, vacation benefits, and retirement, and they improved safety standards on the job. And lastly, they protected the integrity of trade unions. That is why trade unions are very, very important even today. What did the Workmen's Compensation Act provide for? It provided for medical or disability benefits for on-the-job injuries and disease. So these are a few of the positives that came out of the Burma Road Riot. Positive results or effects. As we said earlier, the Burma Road Riot set the stage for the development of political parties in the Bahamas. First was the Progressive Liberal Party that was led by Sir Lyndon Pinling in 1953, and secondly, the UBP or the United Bohemian Party that was formed in 1958 and led by Sir Roland Simonet. These are the references for this slide. I would like to give a special thank you and honorable mention to the Social Studies Department at S.C. McPherson, who presented week 2 of the LMS lesson kit on the Burma Road Riot. Thank you very much, students, for joining me. I hope that this video explains what you should know and what you would like to know about the Burma Road Riot. After going through this video, I want you to go into the LMS, go into your class for social studies, and complete the assignments that are posted. Thank you, students, for your attention.